Well, greetings, Bruno. A very happy new year to you. I am smoking in your honor after that wonderful, I think, excellent video triumph of giving your review about the new Balkan Sobranie. I just recently purchased this new Bootshukan Calabash Churchwarden is what I'm calling it. Boy, I just love the beautiful lines of this pipe. It's beautiful, and because it is a calabash, but also with the beautiful long flute or stem, this pipe smokes wonderfully. And I have to tell you that during your review, which was, again, even though I realized it was 48 minutes, I watched the entire thing. I also downloaded it, if you don't mind, saving it for posterity. I'm going to cellar it. But it was an excellent review about Balkan Sobranie. And there's just a few things that I wanted to, personally share with you that I don't want to share with other people. Not that they're anything inappropriate or controversial or anything, really. It's just that some of my opinions might be best left for more personal, so shall we say, tete-a-tetes. But during your video, I did take the opportunity to find my tin. I think this was the one I bought two. One I sent to you, of course, and then this one is mine. And I've had one bowl. And as we both know, smoking a new tobacco for the very first time, especially in an established pipe that you've used for other tobaccos or maybe a specific tobacco, you're not really going to get on the first smoke. It's actually unrealistic to think you're going to get a true representation of the complexity of the flavors that are waiting to be discovered because of the ghosting I think that briar pipes are just notorious for. And that includes Dunhills. But I think that when I'm trying out a pipe, new tobacco, truly giving it an opportunity, meerschaums or clay pipes are just the best way to go. But anyway, your video review, most excellent. I can't praise you enough. With a few minor things, which certainly, if you decided to ever, make that into a professional documentary of some quality, you could certainly do it. You have the storyboard right there, and just some more your little graphical interludes there, or punctuations, if you will, were excellent. But I thought it was a very well done video. In fact, I'm waiting until a few hours because I want to put that in my queue of favorites. I want that to be the first for 2012. So I just wanted to let you know that. I'm going to share with you, or make some comments on some of your reflections. And the first one, you mentioned that tobacco was, for the most part, condemned by the clergy. And again, I haven't done an exhaustive research on this, but I did do a little simple Google search on tobacco and Christianity. And interestingly enough, and again, this basically comes from my own historical understandings and personal understandings and experiences of my own Catholic faith. But tobacco, interesting enough, the Catholic Church does condemn a lot of things. But interesting enough, it never officially condemned tobacco, the Catholic Church, that is. It is true that clergy of other denominations clearly did condemn tobacco, as do the Eastern Orthodox, which kind of surprised me. But the Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church, never has condemned tobacco. In fact, it advocates, of course, moderation, not excess. So the virtue is to be gained or to strive for is temperance, I guess. In other words, you're not overindulging in things, whether it's tobacco, alcohol, food. Okay? And I think that comes from our understanding that what God created, God created everything as good. God didn't create, things that were bad in and of themselves. And I think the honest enjoyment that someone can enjoy, derive from a pipe, the ability to slow down, focus on something, which also leads you to maybe be more ready for, say, prayer, because if you're like me and you're harried, you just kind of race through some of the prayers. You're not really truly pondering them, savoring them as you would, say, like a tobacco. You're allowing the words to wash over you. There's one seminary professor once said. So one learns that beautiful ability to slow down, to relax, to enter into that moment, which is a very, again, a good thing. Time being a created thing as well. We have to sometimes realize that we are not the masters of time, but it is the masters of us, and to have a healthy respect for time. Even in my own personal journey in my Catholic faith, I remember asking my spiritual director one of the very first things, because I still loved smoking a pipe, although I didn't smoke as often as I do now. But I certainly enjoyed my pipes. And I remember asking him, saying, well, is it okay as a Catholic to smoke a pipe? And he very wittingly said, well, it's better to smoke now than to smoke later, if you get my meaning. And certainly there are Catholics, clergy, lay people who are in today's climate are very opposed to certainly cigarette smoking and tobacco use in general. But again, if people know that I smoke a pipe, they don't. There's a few people that might question it from a health perspective, and especially in today's day and age. But I think that just like with alcohol, alcohol is a good. Okay, now people that are, say, alcoholics, it's not good. They should definitely abstain. But again, I think the Puritan element in Christianity, wants to see things as hazardous, and therefore, put the abolition, the prohibition on things, because after all, we can't really be trusted to do the right thing all the time, and there's some truth to that, but again, Catholics look upon, in true Catholic theology, we look upon the freedom of the conscience, the freedom, free will. God doesn't want us to be little automatons, like the Borg, if you're a Star Trek fan, mindlessly following rules and regulations. He wants us to be responsive to the law of love, And as St. Augustine says, love God and then do what you will. A good axiom to live by. So I don't think that the Catholic Church, for one rare exception, can sit this one out when it comes to condemnation of our favorite blessed weed, shall we say. The other thing that you mentioned, you made many, many wonderful points. I love the history of the Balkan tobaccos. I have to consider myself a novice when it comes to true understanding of tobacco, pipe tobacco. Although I think one of the things that I think, and I hope I'm probably gonna slaughter a few sacred cows, maybe, in saying this, because it almost sounds like a heresy. But about several months ago, as I was driving and smoking one of my wonderful Dunhills on my journey to Fairfield, the understanding, the realization that what happened in the manufacture of cigarette tobacco, with all of the sinister chemicals laced into it for whatever reason, and the addictive nature of many of those chemicals, was when that understanding came to me, I said, well, what about if tobacco was actually grown organically, purely, cured naturally, which most of it is, a lot of it is, and there were no basic, hidden additives to bring about addiction and carcinogens. I will say one thing about this Balkan Sobranie. It does have a little bit of a mild buzz factor, which is kind of nice. I do like that. Very, very tasty. Again, let me just take a little back step here and just say that even though I did smoke it originally in one of my briars, and it was okay. It wasn't like some horrible tobacco, but this is like the second bowl in this pipe that I just acquired the other night from the briar patch, and I can say that certainly some of the beautiful, sweet hints, wonderful flavors are coming through more and more effortlessly. Again, this is even though it's a rich smoke, it is not harsh at all. No tongue bite. And so my opinion, probably, because not so much of your video, but your video led me to give it another chance, because I've tried some tobaccos and some I really, really like. Again, Blue Mountain was a wonderful first experience, truly. And I think what happened was, when this came back on the market, I think a lot of people, and you bring this point out, were a little unrealistic in their expectations. It's like if you were to say, for example, and again, I'm just speaking off the top of my head. I don't have any real expertise or experience what I'm going to say. But, let's say a Mouton Rothschild. And again, I watch a lot of All Creatures Great and Small, and supposedly the 28 Margot or the 28 Mouton Rothschild was in 1940-41 was an excellent vintage. I'm sure today a 28 Mouton Rothschild would be vinegar. Again, they go through an arc of, as you would say, maturation, and then as they come to that peak, of course, that means they're going to be then declining as well. So the thing is that you make a wonderful, wonderful closing comment that, to compare a young minted harvested Balkan Sobranie with, say, something of a tin of 40 years of age, providing it hasn't deteriorated, is unfair. It's unrealistic. Now, that being said, I think, if I am not mistaken, I'll have to go back and look at your excellent video, and I will, by the way. Pardon me. I can actually do this with this. It's so light. I like that. Woody. You hit the nail on the head when you said it has some really beautiful woody overtones, but very sweet woodiness about this. And again, I also, as I remember commenting to Hardjuric on another blend about some of the, believe it or not, kind of cheese flavors. Those flavors are also there too. Smoky, cheesy flavors, mild, sweet, creamy. But again, trying to compare something that's an infant in its infancy as compared to a mature cellared tobacco would be like trying to compare a brand new Mouton Rothschild, which is basically, most people would say, probably isn't drinkable until 10 years. So again, I just think that a lot of us, including yours truly, kind of thought, oh wow, this is going to be like almost like wow, whatever, fill in the blank. It's going to be that exquisite. That's going to be that fantastic. So again, I think there was a lot of unrealistic expectations on the part of so many of us, because we've heard about the original Balkan Sobranie and how marvelous it is or was. And but the wonderful thing and the good thing is that if they used the exact same recipe. Now, there's so many other variables to consider. The year in which the tobaccos were grown and where they were grown. Was it a good harvest that year? Just like wines. Some wines, they've been grown in great regions, but maybe that year wasn't a very good year for that particular varietal. So, and again, also it depends upon, again, the manufacturer process. Again, if they're following the exact recipe and manufacture of the product with a good year's crop, was the master blender doing it, or was he just kind of giving it to some novice guy who was learning the art of blending? Who knows? But there's so many variables that go into making something like a good tobacco, good wine, whatever. So, I think that basically this is a great mixture. In some ways, it does. It is reminiscent of maybe my beloved pirate cake, although there are some harmonic overtones in pirate cake that are not in this. It doesn't mean this is inferior. That's another point that I like that you made. We here in America tend to be an either-or kind of mentality. Either this is good, compared to something else, or it's not good, and we it's like you put two tins in a ring, and they battle it out, for the first prize, the grand, who knocks who out of the ring, that kind of thing. And it's just like music, Mozart is not Beethoven, and Beethoven's not Shostakovich, and Shostakovich is not Vaughan Williams, but I love them all equally, Kind of like the lark ascending here, So that mentality, I think, is not a good mentality to have when judging things like pipe tobaccos. I would say that I don't know if I really have the type of palate that which you would say is I have a distinguished palate, almost akin to someone has perfect pitch or not. Doesn't mean a person who doesn't have perfect pitch can't really appreciate music. I will say that I believe that if somebody put 10 pipes loaded with 10 tobaccos that I have definitely smoked and over the years, I believe without a doubt that I could detect what they were. So if you loaded up something, of course, with Pirate Cake or Sunset Breeze or Balkan Sobranie or Penzance or even Half and Half, I could definitely say which one was which. So I know that originally I probably was not able to do that. But it was with the rediscovery of my pipes this year, thanks in large part to people like you and others on YouTube, and sampling all these different wonderful vapors, I am reasonably confident that, yes, I am able to distinguish quite clearly different tobaccos. So, but I think it lends me to kind of talk about one last thing, which has nothing to do with tobacco, but it has to do with comparisons from a religious, spiritual, if you will, perspective. And this argument has been ongoing in the traditional Catholic movement. When I talk about traditional, I'm talking about the restoration of the traditional Latin Mass. After Vatican II, the traditional Latin Mass, many people believed was outlawed and banned, which it never was. But it was not the norm. It was not the new form of Mass was the norm, and so many of the priests who went through Vatican II were because they did not. And I actually talked to a senior priest who said that my assumption was absolutely correct. When the new priests that were being ordained in the late 1960s, even though they were going to still be saying the old Mass, their minds were far ahead of that, and they were thinking, well, thanks be to God, we don't have to do this much longer, and we'll be able to say the new Mass in the vernacular. And unfortunately, instead of trying to grow in a spiritual maturity, because I think you have to have a certain maturity, spiritual maturity, to celebrate the Latin Mass and to appreciate it. That was missing for many of them. They just it was almost like if you were told you were going to be getting a new computer word processor and the new electronic typewriter, make it more applicable, I guess, the old manual typewriter, Underwoods, so to speak. Well, people would be saying, well, I can't wait till I can get rid of this antique and get into the new. So you wouldn't really want to spend time kind of really going in deeper to the underpinnings that undergird this thing. And so one of the big questions has been, in the last 4 years, since the Pope gave all priests the permission to celebrate the traditional Latin Mass without having to get your permission from a bishop or your abbot or whatever. A lot of older people would go to a new Mass and they would be expecting things from their childhood that weren't there. And they were disappointed. And even some of them even began to question the validity of such a Mass. They go, well, gosh, this young priest who really doesn't speak Latin, but, it was very, very critical, and to some extent still are. And so I've kind of experienced that in my own priesthood, in my own life, when celebrating, say, the traditional Latin Mass. Well, is it the same? Well, the book is the same. The words are the same. The validity of the sacrament is the same. But it lacks the maturity of, say, maybe the congregation as well as the young priest saying it. Although the Fraternity of St. Peter, which is dedicated primarily to the restoration and preservation of the traditional Latin Mass, they have done an excellent job in bringing it back in all of its beauty, to include the music, the beautiful music of, say, Palestrina and Victoria, as well as others, and preserving that beautiful form of the Mass. But again, it's something that I think it's, again, you bring it up in your video about the Balkan Sobranie, is that it's a mistake, I think, to try and compare something that is, created now with something that was, say, 60 years old, 40 years old, 30 years old, and say, well, this was the way it's supposed to be, and this is because it's, whether it's young, immature, maybe even somewhat inferior, that somehow it's not the same. Well, it's not the same, but it comes from the same, hopefully the same loving attitude and devotion that the original comes from. And given time, given a maturation process, it can only become what it will become in time, and it will be a wonderful thing. I see this little stem here. I was wondering what this little black thing was right over here, my shirt. I thought, what is that? Well, I just wanted to say to Bruno in closing, this is more of a personal note here. I've enjoyed getting an opportunity to meet you in this vein, this virtual video vein. But personally, I hope you don't take offense to this, but as you probably have known from some of my videos about my late brother, who's sad to say passed away 4 years ago on Christmas Eve. Kind of a Dickensian element there, Just saw my cat out there. Snowball. Your erudition, your love for knowledge and excellence reminds me so much of my brother Earl. It's almost, in some ways, going back 50 years and meeting my brother when he was a young man, as you are now. You even resemble my brother in his younger years, and your passion for learning and knowledge, and your scholasticism. I mean, my brother, I know he would have loved to have seen your video on pipe smoking. I think he would have enjoyed that immensely. I could just see him, of course I'd have to make the screen bigger so he could watch it. But I think he would just say, well, that young man is awesome. He knows what he's talking about. So in some ways, I guess my appreciation of you as a person, as a friend, is based upon the fact that you so much remind me of a younger version of my brother, who of course I dearly loved and miss tremendously, not only at this time of year but all throughout the year. Although we weren't as close as we could have been because of the 20 years difference in our ages and some other personal factors involved, we did have a good, close, long-distance relationship, which is kind of maybe why I feel so comfortable in saying what I'm saying to you now. Although I think it would be an absolute wonderful thing for us someday, if it's possible, to meet and share a bowl and just maybe take a walk and talk about life and stuff. And it'd just be a real privilege and a real treat if that day ever comes. Perhaps it will. Who knows? But again, I just wanted to send this little personal New Year's video to you, and I hope I don't embarrass you too much. And again, this is personal, so only you can see it. I'll probably delete it within a few days once I know you've seen it. If you could just PM me and say you've seen the video, and I'll erase it. from my YouTube queue, but it'll be marked personal or private. So, but again, I have enjoyed not only your videos, which are most excellent. I'm going to continue. I always, when I see a video from you, it automatically. Actually, I have to say I don't immediately watch it, and I'll tell you why. Because I want to savor it, and it has nothing to do with the time limitations. It's just that my time limitations, not yours. You say, well, gosh, you don't have time to watch my videos because they're so long. No, that's not it at all. This morning I said, you know what, I'm going to treat myself. It's a very slow Saturday, which is a real unusual here in the parish. And I said, I'm going to watch that video. And then I realized it's 48 minutes. I said, enjoy it. I'm going to enjoy every single minute of it. And I did. So that was not a showstopper at all. In fact, I was kind of going, wow, I wish there was more. You did an excellent job on the video, Bruno. Okay, well, I sure hope that 2012 is a good year for you. I really mean that. I hope you have many wonderful visits with your father, your family, your brothers, your love of nature and poetry and music and art. I certainly hope that you find a wonderful job in this new year, and you will be fulfilled and blessed, my friend. So thank you for all of the blessings, virtual blessings, I should say, that you've given to me in this past year. And so until next time we meet, take care.